Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our TaxFolder webinar series. Today, I'm going to talk about signatures and approvals. My name is Sarka Hojda. I'm a CPA, CGA, and a Senior Product Manager with TaxCycle. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering adding and managing clients, creating a signature and approval request, how you're going to track that document status through your Prepare dashboard tools, the engagement view notifications, and I'm going to touch on what happens with multiple signers, like in the case of the T1032. We'll show you how to edit, void, and delete a document request, and how to download your completed documents if you wish to save them locally, and where you need to update client details when your client changes an email or a phone number. You'll see that I have my TaxFolder dashboard open with the owners signed in at the top here, Diana, that we created in the first session of the webinar series. And I've already gone ahead and added a client here, but you can add clients in TaxFolder easily by going to your client list, click on the add client here, and you can go ahead and add clients this way. So let's add somebody else, and we'll do I'm just going to go find that phone number I'm using for the webinar. And again, we mentioned I mentioned in part 1 that there's a language capability here. So if you have a client that prefers to receive all of their communications in French, then you have that option to set your client specifically to French, even if you're choosing to view things in English. So that option is there now. You would then select which preparer you're assigning this to, and in this case, I'm going to assign this to David. I think the first one I assigned to myself. And then you would select your return type. So whatever return you're creating this engagement for. So what happens is it's going to add your client and it's going to add your first engagement at the same time. So I'm going to say we're preparing a T1 for James in the 2024 year. And here is where you have the option to ask them to upload documents or to invite them to connect to the client portal. And I am going to do this actually from TaxCycle. So I'm going to turn this off for James, and I'm going to go ahead and add the client. And you can see that now James is one of my clients in here. And if I go to the In Progress tab, I'll see that I have a new engagement here as well. Okay. Now, to see the details of the engagement, and if I wanted to send something to my client for a signature approval or approval, I can do that directly from TaxFolder. So if I have a PDF that I'm not generating or sending through TaxCycle integration, then I can do that here. So if I click on Raymond, I can go into the engagement that I've set up already for Raymond. And to create an approval or signature request, I would just click on New Approval Request here. And then I would add a document. And let me see where I put those. I think I had them in here. So I'm just going to grab a document to drop in. So I have an engagement letter. Ignore the name, it's not going to match. And then here I have the opportunity to add additional approvers. So if I need more than one signature on this document, I can add additional approvers here by clicking this. It will create another section where I would enter the recipient's name and recipient's email address. I'm not going to do that for this, but basically it'll give you those two different signature fields to add to your document if you need to. And then you would create a subject line for your request. So I need a subject line, and optionally you can add a message here to your recipient that will drop in the notification that gets sent out to your client. If I don't need signatures, I can send this without a signature box added to it, and so then that will just show up as an approval request. If I want to add signatures, I would click on this second option here, and then I would get another screen that allows me to scroll down, and then I can click on and drag the signature box to where I want it, and same with the date field. So once I'm happy with where that is, if I had multiple signers, this would give me the option to choose the other signer that I want to have that signature box attached to. In this case, I only have one, so only the one option there, and then I can go ahead and send that for signature, and off it goes. It's going to create a document here in your approvals and signatures section so that you can track the progress of that particular request. You'll see that underneath here we have a view status. If I click on this arrow, it's going to open that up, and what that's going to tell me is the status of the email notification that I just sent out for this signature request. And so I can see that it was processed. When the client clicks on the link, it will show as clicked. So you'll know that they've actually opened it up and they've clicked on the link and they've tried to access the document at that point. If this shows some other status, like if, for example, the client email bounces, it will show as bounced. And so then you'll know that there's a problem with the email address that is being used with the client. From here, I have a few other menu options on the side. I can view the original PDF that was attached, so I can open that up. I can also resend this request. What resend request does is it will take the original request exactly as is, no changes, no updates, and it will send it one more time with another notification. So basically, it's just renewing the link to the document. If the client has a change of email address or has a change of phone number, this will not update that. So just so you know, if there's a situation where you need to update client information and you have a document in process, you'll need to void the document and send it again after you've updated the client details. Mark is complete is an option you can select if you've sent this out for signature, but your client shows up at the office and signs it manually. Now you want to keep a record of your signature request and just make a note of the fact that they came in and already completed it manually. So if I click on that, it will just show as manually completed. And then edit request is where I would go if a client has changed their email address or or maybe I mistyped the phone number. I can go in and edit the request. So it works as the same as in a similar way as resend, but it will let you update the information here for any documents that are already in process. So if I edit request, it's going to open up that same window that we saw before. And now I can update the email address if I need. I can update the phone number here if I need. And then I can go ahead and click on the add edit signature field and then send it one more time. And it will send a new request with this updated information. Document ID is something that you may need if there's a problem with the document and you need support to take a look at it. What you need to give us is this document ID. You can copy it here and include it with your support request so we can find the document you're referring to. And then you have the option to void a document here. So if you want to keep a record of the request in the system, but you want to show it as a completed document, you can void it here, or you have the option to delete it. If you delete it, you cannot recover it. So it will be gone forever, just so you know. So I'm gonna go over into TaxCycle now and open up a TaxCycle file that I've already prepared for the webinar. So in this case, I have a coupled return and a dependent attached in here. I've also made them pension eligible, so I can show the pension split. I wanted to just quickly show you how this custom field that we talked about in the first part of the series works. So if I go to my print, and you see that I have, by default, it's selected all of my e-signature print sets. If I change this to no, it will update here. So that's how that condition works in the options profile. And it just makes it a little bit quicker for me to get to those print sets that are relevant if I'm using e-signature for my client. Then I can go ahead and print selected, and that works the same way as you're used to. It's going to send off all of those items that I've set up directly to the client, or I can use it's under client print family. And that will also work to send everything in this one file to TaxFolder at the same time for efficiency purposes. If I'm just sending one print request, I can take, like, say I'm just sending the TaxFolder. Let's see what's in these. That's just, so let's send this e-signature request one. So in there I have my engagement letter, my auth rep, my T1 summary, and my T183. So if I were to send that, I'm just going to double check my settings. And if you've got this all set up in your options, it will all work as you expect. I'm going to click to invite this client to use my client portal. And I'm going to also ask them to upload documents at the same time as I send this across. And I've chosen my T183 cover email message because I've got my T183 in the print set. If you prefer to use something else, or you have a custom e-signature email template, you can select that in here. And at the bottom, it's going to tell me my taxpayer information. So that's who I'm sending it to. That's the email address it's using. And this is the phone number it's using. So this is a quick double check to make sure that the information is going to where you want it to. And then I am signed in as David in my TaxCycle, and I did that here at the top. And then it's by default going to create an engagement label for the name of the tax recipient. If I want that to be something else, I can override this and change it to whatever custom engagement label I want to use. I'm going to leave it as the default. Or if for some reason I had two different 2024 T1 engagements in here, then I can click on this little arrow. It's going to show me all the relevant engagements I can attach this to, and I can choose the one that's relevant. And then I can go ahead and send this to TaxFolder. So you can see it's spooling, it's going to send it out. And then if I go, once that's done sending, if I go to my email box, you'll see now I have this one actually is probably the first one. So this is the one from our bunch that we sent from TaxFolder directly. And now you'll see the other ones have just come in from the TaxCycle side where we just sent it to Marianne. So if I click on this, you'll see that this is to Mary. And there I've added my logo. So my logo is going to show up in my notification. And it's going to welcome them to the TaxFolder portal. It's going to give them some instructions for how to connect their account. And if I were to do that now, I can, let's copy this link. Actually, we're going to do this in part 3. So I'm going to leave this one alone. We're going to come back to that in part 3. And then this is the email they got requesting the upload of the tax documents. So that information is now also available here. And if they click this, it's going to take them to the client portal. So we want to make sure that they're first connecting the account by following the invite, and then they can go to upload documents. Again, we'll cover this tomorrow. But here's that signature request. So let's copy this link. And you'll see this is the template that came in from TaxCycle. Is going to drop in here. And the subject line on the template is what you're going to see up here in the subject line. So if I go to here, and I've just put this in cell phone view so that it shows what the client will see if they're using a cell phone to complete their signature request. And so it's going to show the first part of the phone number that you've entered. They have to enter in the last 4 digits. And you'll know that it was successful because they get this and the option to resend the code or to call with a voicemail. And sorry, just gonna need to grab that code. I'm gonna need to resend it. Just give me a second.
Your phone verification code for TaxFolder press 6.
And if they have to do a phone verification like I do on this one,
Code is 8 3 1 6 7 7. Again, 8.
All right.
3.
So then that's going to let me into my document, and I can go ahead down to the signature box. I can click next to get there. So if I click on the signature box, I can go ahead and sign, save that signature. It's going to drop it in that first field. TaxCycle by default will put in a date for you. And then I can just click on next, go to the next signature box, click on it to add my signature there. And there's one more signature here at the bottom. And then all of the signature fields are signed. Now I have the option to edit my signature if I don't like how it looks on the form, or I can decline to sign this document. So maybe I found an error and I would like you to make a correction, then I can decline it. I can put in a reason for why I'm declining that and send it back to you. It'll show as declined in the dashboard on your side, and you'll get a notification as well. Yeah. If all is good, I go ahead and I send. It's going to show the status as successful, and the client now has the option to download a completed copy. So that will be the copy with the signature and the certificate that they signed it at the end. And they're going to get a notification as well in the email that it was completed. So this is the completed document. That's the one that's come to me as the preparer. Now I've got this all in one email address, but you would have it obviously in separate ones. And I think the completed one, yeah, so it's grouped the Marys into a conversation. So there's the original request and there's the completed document available for download there. All right. Now, if we go back to TaxCycle, you'll see now that in TaxCycle is showing me that that engagement letter is signed. You can see that the icon up here has updated. And if I click on that, it's going to give me a banner at the top that shows that Mary has signed it. And if I click on this view, it will download a completed copy that is signed for me. And it's opening up in Adobe for me, and then it will also save it by default in the same folder where I have this TaxCycle file saved. So I don't have to take that extra step to save it, but I can if I don't want it saved in that same folder. You can also get to the completed copy from your preparer dashboard because that menu will now have locked the document. So if I go back to TaxFolder, to Mary, this document is now showing as completed. And so I only have the option to download the completed document or copy the document ID at this point, but it will save all the relevant information. So you can download it from TaxCycle, or you can download it here from TaxFolder if you prefer. Okay, so let's do a document that is going to get sent. Let's do the T1032, and I don't know if I did a separate, I don't have my separate T1032 print set here, but we chatted about that and I showed you the help topic in part 1. But to send this T1032, it's going to send everything that I put together in this print set will go to both recipients. So I only want to send the T1032, so I'm going to just right click on this and I'm going to print the PDF and I'm going to send it. We can save it there. I'm going to send it to TaxFolder. I'm going to request the signatures. And I think there is, we'll just use the e-signature standard. Yes. I don't need to invite or ask to upload because we already did that. And now you'll see that it's showing 2 taxpayers are going to sign. So I'm going to double check this information that that's what I want it to be. And I'm going to go ahead and send that to the same engagement that we created already before. So it's not going to create a new client anymore because that engagement already exists. It's going to add it to the one that we already created. And when we do that, you'll see that now it's created. We have the menu that shows at the top of the print set, and it's saying that that the electronic signature was requested from both Mary and from William. And we also have some additional options here. So similar to what I just showed you in TaxFolder, here you have the option to view, and view here in TaxCycle will open again the original unsigned PDF. You can resend, and that again will resend with exactly the same information that it was resent with before. So it's going to take the one that was historically sent and we'll just send it one more time. It's not going to update anything from info. So if you've made an error in typing the email or typing the phone number here, you'll need to void it or delete it, update your information, and then send a new request to make sure you're capturing those updates. So resend is really useful here only in the sense that if your client missed the request, there's no changes and the link has expired, then you can go ahead and resend it here. You can also void from here. So it will send a void request to TaxFolder, void it there, and it will update the void here. In this case, it will leave you the banner. It'll show that it was voided, and it will show voided in the signature request line. Signed here is the same as completed manually in TaxFolder. So if your client comes in and they signed it in the office, then you can just click signed and it'll record this as signed here. Now this year we also added some additional tracking for you so that you can see in the case of the T1032 in particular that here it's showing that it was sent to William and also sent to Mary Ann. When Mary Ann signs this, it's going to update that Mary Ann signed, and it's going to leave this piece for William showing as sent. So you can tell exactly who signed it and who you need to chase to get a signature. That status will also show in TaxFolder, I believe, as well, but certainly it will show here so that you don't have to guess about who is having difficulty finding the signature request. I also wanted to mention the engagement tracking along the side. So you'll see that a lot of this workflow gets completed automatically. So when I sent the engagement letter, it sent it out. We'll update this status to sent, and now it's showing as signed because I've already signed it. So that will allow me to also track here, and it will also save it in the history of the file as well. If for some reason when you open the file, the notifications aren't coming through right away, there's this little hamburger icon at the bottom. That's our notification service. And if it's showing not connected, you can click on this button at the bottom and it will connect again to notifications and retrieve all of those updates that maybe didn't come through for whatever reason on first try. Okay, so one other thing that I was going to cover here is when we print to TaxFolder, we have this request signature option. We have the approval option, and we have this share documents option. So if I go, sorry, I'm just going to close out of here. I'm going to go back to my print set. So now I'm wrapping up my client engagement and I want to send them a client copy. I've got this already set up to share documents. So if I send this over, it's going to drop it into the Preparer Files section of my TaxFolder engagement. And I must have my T1032 in this print set because now, see, this is telling me it's going to go to both, and I don't want that. So I'm going to close this. And we want this TaxFolder client copy. And yes, it is in there. So I'm going to turn that one off, and we're going to do this again. And so now I just have Marianne, and that's what I want. I just want to send her client copy over to her portal. Share documents is what I'm going to use, and I'm going to go ahead and send that. So it's going to create a PDF of all of those client documents, and it's going to drop that as a single file in my Preparer Files section. If I go back into TaxFolder and Marianne's engagement, and I'm going to hit refresh here, there's that T1032 request that I sent across. And down here is now the file that I have gone ahead and shared with my client. So I also have some control here. I can manually add files in here for my client. If there's some other source documents that I want to send back to my client, I can just drag and drop them in here. And I can also select to download these to a local drive later on if I want to, or I can delete them later if I need to. And I'll show you what the client sees in part 3 of the webinar series on this. All right, so we talked about email status, downloading. Okay, so really now we're on to the last piece, which is the client details. If something should happen to change with your client details, or there was a typo and you need to make a correction, you're going to first want to go and make sure that it is correct on info in your file if it is coming from TaxCycle. So if I made a mistake here, I'm going to update the address. I'm going to update the phone number here first. Then TaxFolder doesn't pick up changes to client information. So then I have to go into my client, and I can edit my client here in the engagement view. There's client settings. If I click on this, I can edit client here, and it'll open up the window. I can update the email address and phone number here if I need, and save. And again, just another reminder that this does not update any documents in progress. So if you need to update this document that was already sent with a new phone number, then you'll need to go and use the edit request to update that phone number in here as well. Another place you can update the client information is on the client list. If you click on this down menu here at the side, you can edit client info from here as well in the dashboard. And I think that we are at the time limit that we had planned for this webinar, so I'm just going to cut it off there, and we'll pick this up in part 3 with what the client sees on their side. Thank you for joining me here today, and I look forward to having you join me in part 3. Have a great rest of your day.